I wasn't hiding. I just didn't have anywhere else to go. That's what he whispered when she opened the stall door and saw him curled up asleep on the toilet seat with nothing but a worn-out jacket and a mop beside him. She was a millionaire CEO, flawless, feared, untouchable. He was the night janitor, invisible, disposable, unimportant. But in that moment, beneath the flickering fluorescent light of a 48th floor bathroom, she saw something no balance sheet had ever shown her. A man who didn't ask for pity, who didn't beg, who didn't even know she was watching, but still carried more dignity than the richest men she'd ever met. And somehow she couldn't. Millionaire CEO froze when she found a janitor sleeping on a toilet, then unexpectedly fell in love. She opened the stall door and found a man who wasn't supposed to exist. It was nearly midnight. The Jensen building, all 52 floors of gleaming glass and white marble, had emptied out hours ago. Everyone had gone home, except her, Lena Caldwell, 33 CEO, known across Wall Street as the Ice Queen in Heels, built her empire from ashes, spoke in numbers, slept 4 hours a night, trusted no one. She was used to silence, preferred it, actually, but that night in the executive restroom on the 48th floor, she heard something strange, a soft, rhythmic sound, almost like breathing. She frowned, stepped quietly, checked one stall, empty, the next, also empty. The third, locked. Someone's here. She tapped once. No answer. She waited. Then slowly, gently pushed the stall door. It wasn't fully latched. And there, curled up on the closed toilet seat, head resting on a bundled-up jacket, was a man. Tall, exhausted, wearing the dark green uniform of the overnight cleaning crew. She froze, not because she was afraid, but because something about the way he was curled up, like he didn't mean to fall asleep like this, was his only option, pierced through the polished armor she wore like second skin. He startled awake, sat up fast, eyes wide, dazed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I was just, I didn't think anyone was still. He trailed off, saw her heels, her sharp suit, her cold stare, realized exactly who she was. "You're Ms. Caldwell." She didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at him, and not the way people usually do. Not like he was a problem, not like he was a stain on the floor. More like she was trying to understand what he was doing, sleeping in a bathroom at midnight. Finally, she spoke. "What's your name?" "Mason." "Last name?" "Does it matter?" She raised an eyebrow. "It does now." Flashback earlier that day. He'd stayed after his shift. Not to rest, but because he didn't have a home to go to. He'd been sleeping at different buildings all week. A couch in the supply room, a stairwell 2 nights ago. Tonight, the cleanest stall he could find. He was saving everything he made to send back to his little sister, the only family he had left. Back to present. Lena looked at him, hard, then did something no one in the building had ever seen her do. She opened her purse, pulled out her access card, and handed it to him. "Go down to the 22nd floor. Guest lounge. There's a couch and a coffee machine. Don't let anyone else see you." He blinked. "You're not going to fire me." "Not tonight." And with that, she walked out, leaving him holding her key card and wondering why the richest woman in the building just gave him her only way to escape the bathroom. The man who cleaned her floors now held her access card. Mason couldn't sleep. Not because the couch on the 22nd floor was uncomfortable, it was perfect. Not because the room was cold, it was warm, quiet, even had a stocked fridge. He couldn't sleep because he didn't understand why she helped him. Powerful people don't do that, not for people like him, especially not her. Lena Caldwell didn't sleep either. She stared at the city lights from her glass office, mind spinning. Why did I give him the key card? She'd fired people for less an intern, once spilled coffee, and never came back. But there was something about the way Mason looked at her. Not with fear, not with flattery, but with dignity, even in exhaustion. Flashback 5 years earlier. Lena, still climbing, still hustling, once slept in her car for 17 nights in a row. Back then, no one handed her a key card, no one looked twice. Maybe that's why she didn't slam the stall door, because even though she was now worth $170 million, a part of her still remembered what it felt like to be invisible. The next night, Mason showed up to his shift early, hair washed, shirt clean, eyes steady. He went about his rounds like nothing had happened until the elevator dinged and she stepped out. Lena, sharp blazer, phone in one hand, eyes locked on him. She didn't smile, didn't greet him, just passed by, paused, and said quietly, "If you ever need food or a place to sit, don't sleep in the bathroom again." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. And don't call me that." He blinked. "Then what should I call you?" She didn't turn around. Lena. That was the beginning of the silences in elevators, the unspoken glances, the 2 a.m. meetings by accident in the break room, of her noticing he always clocked out 10 minutes late, that he read old paperback novels during lunch, that he once helped the receptionist when her car broke down, then walked 3 miles home so no one would know. Then came the storm. One night, Lena stayed late again. Mason was mopping the marble near the lobby. She was on the phone arguing with someone, voice colder than usual. "No, I'm not coming to the gala. No, I don't care what the board thinks. I'm not here to perform." She turned, saw him. "You heard that?" "A little." "Judging me?" "No," he said. "Just wondering what kind of war you're fighting, if even victory tastes bitter." She didn't respond, but her hand trembled slightly as she hung up the call. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever looked at her like she was the one falling apart. That night she went home in silence. And Mason, he went back to the 22nd floor lounge, laid down, looked up at the ceiling, and whispered, "Lena," not with worship, not with fear, just like she was a person. And somehow, that made her feel more human than any boardroom ever had. ChatGPT said, "Here is part 3 of your 8-part dramatic story. Millionaire CEO froze when she found a janitor sleeping on a toilet. Then unexpectedly fell in love where silence turns into something electric. And the CEO who ruled from glass towers begins falling for the man who swept her floors." Part 3. She didn't smile, but she stayed longer than necessary. After that night, Lena started noticing. She didn't plan to, didn't want to, but she began catching herself watching Mason in ways she couldn't explain. The way he wiped windows with care, how he greeted the mailroom guy by name, the way he hummed old R&B songs softly when he thought the halls were empty. He was unremarkable to everyone else. But to her, he had started to feel like the only real thing in a world full of polished lies. One night the power went out. Just a flicker, enough to freeze the elevators, darken the upper floors. Lena, still in her office, calmly grabbed her phone flashlight. But when she opened the stairwell door, he was there, sitting 2 steps down, holding a thermos. Hoodie pulled up. "Didn't expect company?" he said, not moving. "I could say the same," she replied, stepping down beside him. They sat in silence. He offered her a sip from his thermos. "What is it?" "Just tea. No poison. Not unless you're allergic to cinnamon and hard truths." She smiled. Actually smiled. Flashback Lena, at age 24. She was in a stairwell then too, eating half a protein bar, ignoring the pain in her feet from 3 back-to-back temp jobs. No one sat beside her. No one shared tea. That memory hit her as she looked at Mason, kind, quiet, carrying dignity like a second skin. Back to present. "You always this calm?" she asked. Only when the world stops pretending it's in control. You're philosophical for a janitor, and you're compassionate for a billionaire. They both laughed gently. Then came a long silence. And then Mason asked the question no one dared ask her. Do you ever get lonely up there? She didn't answer right away. When she did, it was a whisper. I don't think I ever stopped being lonely. After the lights came back, she stood. Thanks for the tea. Thanks for not firing me. She hesitated, then said something she'd never said to anyone below executive level. Good night, Mason. He nodded. Good night, Lena. The next morning she came in early. He had already been there, of course. Mopped floors, trash bins emptied, coffee machine spotless. But beside her office door was a sticky note folded like a tiny envelope. No name, just a small handwritten sentence. You don't have to be cold to stay powerful. She stared at it for a long time. Didn't smile, didn't cry. Just held it, like it weighed more than the briefcase in her hand. That was the moment. Not the stall, not the tea. That note, that was the moment she started falling. Not for his hands. ChatGPT said, here is part 4 of your 8-part dramatic story. Millionaire CEO froze when she found a janitor sleeping on a toilet, then unexpectedly fell in love where attraction grows in the quiet spaces between power and humility. And the woman who never needed anyone starts needing him. Part 4, the woman who controlled everything couldn't control her heart. 2 weeks passed. Lena didn't change her schedule, didn't miss board meetings, didn't cancel investor calls, but something inside her had shifted. She no longer stayed in the elevator when she saw Mason. She no longer avoided eye contact. She no longer pretended she didn't feel something. She'd pause when he passed, ask a question that didn't need asking, linger a second longer than professionalism allowed. And Mason, he noticed, but never crossed the line. Not once, until Friday night. She found him in the copy room, fixing the jam printer with ink-stained fingers. Shouldn't be your job, she said. I don't mind fixing things, he replied. She leaned against the doorway. Even things that aren't yours. He looked up. Some things are worth fixing, even if they never belong to you. That silence between them. It wasn't empty anymore. It was charged. And for the first time, she didn't run from it. Flashback Lena, age 29. She was on the cover of Forbes. Self-made. Cold-blooded. Perfect. But behind the headlines, 3 failed engagements. 1 therapist she never called back. And a mother who only called to ask for money. She didn't build walls to be mean. She built them to breathe. Now Mason, he never asked to climb those walls. He just stood outside and waited. Back to present. That night, Lena sent her driver home, walked the stairs down to the basement parking level. Mason was finishing his shift, putting away supplies, sweat at his collar. She approached him slowly. Want to get coffee, she asked. He blinked. Now. This isn't charity, is it? She stepped closer. No. This is me asking if I can sit across from someone who doesn't care how many buildings I own. He smiled. In that case, yeah, I'd like that. They sat in a 24-hour diner. No designer labels, no cameras, no walls. She learned he liked poetry. He learned she hated her own birthday. They talked for 2 hours. When the waitress brought the check, Mason reached first. She stopped him. Let me? Why? Because I never get to buy someone coffee just to say thanks. He let her, but as they stood to leave, he looked at her seriously. This, whatever it is, it's real, right? Not a distraction. She didn't hesitate. I don't do distractions, Mason. I only do survival. Then softer. And you make surviving feel a little less lonely. That night, she didn't take him home. Didn't kiss him. Didn't rush. But she walked beside him down the block. Quiet, comfortable, and more alive than she'd felt in years. She let him into her world, just not her bedroom. Yet Lena didn't tell anyone about Mason. Not her assistant. Not her board. Not even her therapist, whom she now finally called once a week. Because Mason wasn't something she needed to explain. He was something she needed to protect. Their connection grew in quiet corners, shared tea after midnight meetings, texts at odd hours. Did you eat? Read this poem. Still awake. Little conversations where he'd ask about her headaches, not her profits. For the first time in a decade, Lena found herself wanting someone near her, not to validate her, not to fix her, but simply to be. Flashback 2 weeks after the diner. He brought her flowers, not roses, just wild sunflowers from a stand on 8th Avenue. She stood there in her penthouse kitchen barefoot, in silk pajamas, holding them like someone had handed her a baby. No one's ever bought me these before, she whispered. You like them? They feel uncalculated. He smiled. Exactly why I chose them. That night, she told him something no one else knew. I built all this so no one could ever hurt me again. But some nights, I don't even feel real anymore. He didn't offer advice. He just reached out and gently touched her wrist. You feel real to me, but real isn't always safe. And reality doesn't like secrets, especially when your name is Lena Caldwell and every step you take leaves a footprint in Forbes. The photo came on a Tuesday. Someone had seen them together, leaving a bookstore on a Sunday morning, Mason holding a paper bag, Lena in a hoodie, smiling. It wasn't scandalous, but it was enough. The tabloids spun it fast. Billionaire CEO, dates janitor, Caldwell's mystery, man working class, romance or PR stunt. By noon, her office phone wouldn't stop ringing. By 2 board members were calling emergency meetings. Mason offered to disappear. If this puts your position at risk, stop, she snapped. You are not an inconvenience. But I'm the story now. She looked him dead in the eyes. No, we are the story. And if they can't handle the fact that I love someone with integrity over a resume, then they don't deserve to run a company with my name on it. That was the first time she used the word love. And Mason, he didn't say it back right away. Instead, he said, then let's make this real. Let's stop hiding. Let's stop surviving. That night, he didn't go home. He stayed, not as a secret, but as a man she chose and who chose her back. And for the first time in her life, Lena Caldwell slept beside someone and didn't dream of running away. ChatGPT said, here is part 6 of your 8-part dramatic story, Millionaire CEO froze when she found a janitor sleeping on a toilet. Then unexpectedly fell in love where love leaves the shadows, and the world that once admired her power begins questioning her heart. Part 6. The woman who built an empire now stood on trial for choosing love. The photo went viral. By Friday morning, Lena Caldwell's name was trending, not for her quarterly report, not for another acquisition, but because she was seen holding hands with a janitor. Podcasts called it a fall from grace. Blogs called it the scandal of the season. Executives called it an optics nightmare. And Lena, she called it none of their business. The board summoned her. 12 men in suits, 2 women in pearls, all eyes cold. This relationship jeopardizes your image. No, Lena replied, it jeopardizes your illusion of what leadership looks like. You're emotional. I'm human. You're reckless. I'm real. He's beneath your level. She leaned forward, calm, unflinching. Then maybe your level's been too low for too long. Silence. Flashback her first board meeting, age 28. They told her to cut her hair, to wear beige, to smile more. She didn't listen then. She wasn't going to start now. Back in the penthouse, Mason packed. He hadn't spoken much that morning. He saw the articles, the hate, the photoshopped jokes. He didn't want to be her liability. So he wrote her a letter. I love you enough to step away. Because you fought so long to be seen as more than your gender, I won't let my past rewrite your power. But before he could leave, Lena walked in, eyes burning, letter in hand. Don't you dare walk out and pretend it's love. He froze. Lena, I don't want quiet protection. I want loud partnership. And if I have to lose everything to stand beside the one person who makes me feel like a person, then so be it. She took off her watch, her ring, her blazer, sat beside him. No script, no shield. Just her. If you leave, you're not protecting me. You're just proving them right. Mason looked at her. I'm scared. So am I. But if you're worth fighting for in the dark, then damn it, you're worth standing beside in the light. The next morning she held a press conference. No PR team, no filters, just Lena and her truth. Yes, I'm in a relationship with someone who started here as a janitor. And if you think that makes me weaker, you haven't been watching me very closely. ChatGPT said, here is part 7 of your 8-part dramatic story. Millionaire CEO froze when she found a janitor sleeping on a toilet. Then unexpectedly fell in love where truth becomes public, and the world must decide whether to worship her image or respect her humanity. Part 7, the press conference that turned a power move into a love story. The air was electric. Journalists packed the lobby of the Jensen Tower, cameras, rolling pens, scribbling. Lena Caldwell stood alone at the podium. No notes, no spin team, just her. Behind her, glass panels reflected the city, sharp and unforgiving. But beside her, Mason, not in uniform, not in shadow. Just standing quietly, his presence saying what she didn't need to explain. She began, there's been speculation about my personal life. Yes, I'm in a relationship with a man who began his time here in custodial services. Pause. And while that may confuse you, what should really concern you is why it shocks you at all. The room froze. Flashback. Just hours earlier, board members begged her to cancel the statement. Investors hinted at pulling out. One threatened legal action if the situation affected stock price. Lena tore up the statement they wrote for her. I won't apologize for love. Back to the press room. This man beside me has worked harder than most of my executives. He's been invisible to some of you, but not to me. Because I didn't fall in love with status. I fell for consistency, compassion, and character. A few camera shutters clicked faster. Reporters whispered, but Lena raised her hand. I built this company on truth. And the truth is, I don't want to be admired for being perfect. I want to be remembered for being brave. After the press conference, the internet exploded. Some mocked her. Others called it a publicity stunt. But most stood with her. She Chose character trended for 48 hours. Young women reposted her speech. Men in high places were asked why they never promoted people like Mason. Suddenly, love wasn't the scandal. Judgment was. That night, Lena and Mason sat on the rooftop. City lights glittered below. She held his hand. Still scared, she asked, less. Why? He smiled. Because now the world sees you the way I always have. And how's that? Not as a CEO, not as a symbol, but as a woman brave enough to choose love when she had every excuse not to. She leaned her head on his shoulder. No crown, no armor, just herself. To be continued in Part 8 finale. The day she walked down the stairs, not a red carpet, and found her forever, it happened on a Sunday. No headlines, no paparazzi, no press release, just a small community garden in Brooklyn. Twinkle lights strung across poles. 20 people, folding chairs. The smell of jasmine and cinnamon tea. Lena didn't wear a gown. She wore a cream blouse and soft flats. Mason didn't wear a tux, just a gray linen shirt and a ribbon in his pocket, the same color as the sticky note she kept in her wallet. The one that said, "You don't have to be cold to stay powerful." They stood under an arbor made of driftwood and wild sunflowers. No one gave her away, she gave herself. And when it was Mason's turn to speak, he didn't read a speech. He just looked at her steady, simple, honest. "I fell in love with you not because you were untouchable, but because when no one was watching, you were kind. You gave me a key card when I was sleeping in a stall. You listened when I had nothing to offer. And somewhere between silence and survival, we found something real." Lena's voice cracked when she replied, "For most of my life, I thought love was a transaction, that it had to be earned through power or success or perfection. But you never asked me to perform. You just sat with me in the stairwell and reminded me that I was still human, still whole, still worth choosing." They kissed, softly, without spectacle, the kind of kiss that doesn't ask for applause because it already knows it's enough. Flash forward 2 years later, Lena stepped down as CEO, started a foundation with Mason, one that provides shelter and work placement for homeless individuals in the city. She gave speeches, but fewer now. She smiled more, laughed louder, and never wore heels unless she wanted to. One afternoon, she walked through the company lobby now as a guest. A young intern whispered, "Is that really her?" Someone else replied, "Yeah, the CEO who married the janitor." But they said it with awe, not mockery, because by now everyone knew. She didn't fall. She rose by finally letting herself be seen, not as an empire, not as a headline, but as a woman brave enough to love without needing to be worshipped. If this story reminded you that the greatest power is choosing kindness over fear, subscribe to Real Father's Story for more faceless truths that deserve to be heard.